Hi there, welcome to Urbinary, the podcast cataloging the everyday and extraordinary in the city.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Urbinary. I am Anita and today we are excited to have a returning guest, Abdallah, whom we met in the second episode as one of the main organizers of the conference. Abdallah also served as the track coordinator for Track 4, titled Planning Tools and Techniques Bridging the Gaps Between Theory and Practice. Today we'll delve into the discussions from his track. Hi Abdallah.
Hi Anita.
Thank you again, Abdallah, for joining us today. Here at Urbinary, we invite researchers who present specific planning tools to deal with major issues in real situations. The planning tools represent the link between the theory and the research that often seems to be separated from one another. So, without further ado, let's dive in.
Urbinary.
Track 4's description highlights the challenge that planning research is facing today. In a time where urbanity, which was once seen as the solution, is becoming more problematic, urban research becomes more fundamental for finding solutions through innovative planning tools. However, if research fails to be translated into practice, the impact of work and effort risks having an impaired effect. In an era of increasing complexity, each situation that the planner has to face is unique, context-related, and dynamic. To what extent can the research provide solutions to the planner to deal with such a level of complexity? And can the planner come up with the pre-designed solutions brought by prior research? And finally, how to prevent the research fails to be translated into practice?
Thank you, Anita, for your question, for having me again here. While designing Track 4, we had similar questions in mind, which is why we organized the Track 4 and the subsequent roundtable to address those concerns. I believe this dilemma is not unique to our field, but is a more general issue. Highlighting the gap between academia and practical application is not very specific only to urban planning, but to very different fields, I believe. Our main concern is that the research we conduct within our institutions, despite its importance, may be marginalized when applied to real-world situations, especially when is faced by economic, bureaucratic, and deadline-related challenges, among many others. Regarding the second part of your question, in my opinion, pre-designed solutions don't always work. They are effective sometimes, but not universally. Each situation has its own characteristic. Previous research is very important as it serves as foundation for solution proposed for specific situations, but it must be repeated and reworked to be more specific for each problem we are facing. Finally, I believe that to prevent research from failing in practice, it is crucial to keep real-life situations in mind while conducting research and to stimulate its applicability to those situations. Researchers have a duty to work their research in a way to be applied and not to remain within the theory framework. Otherwise, it loses its main essence, that is, of making positive impact in this world, even in very small scale.
With 10 participants in your track, including Anna Castaldo and Janneke van der Leer, who will be featured in upcoming podcast interviews, could you tell us which one of the tools presented by the participants specifically drew your attention?
Yes, actually, we had a very interesting pool of participants from different backgrounds and countries, each with very different approaches to research. In the selection process, we aim to include a great variety of design tools, from people using mind mapping to others using databases in their quantitative research, and many more. Among these brilliant participants, one in particular caught my attention as well as that of everyone else, I have to say. Baha. All the participants gave fascinating presentation and showcased excellent methodologies. However, Baha had something additional. I will repeat here what Adriano Bisello said. Adriano, as you know, is one of the co-chairs of Track 4, and he commented after Baha's presentation saying, "What made Baha's presentation distinct from the others was his passion for the research he has been conducting. Baha is studying the urban area of a refugee camp on the periphery of Beirut, and while conducting his research, his drone was shot several times, his camera was confiscated, and he was almost kidnapped. Yet he did not surrender. It was very clear from his presentation that his main driver was his passion for his research.
Urbinary.
Another significant moment was the roundtable jointly organized with Track 3, titled Eyes on Practice, Fit in Theory. In episode 9, Dafti introduced us the guests of the roundtable. Now let's discuss with you a common question that emerged during the timetable. Why do practitioners find theory not useful? We found Pasqui's insight particularly intriguing.
Where do you see that what the knowledge you produce, you perceive that it's not interesting for your partners? Could be sometimes. And it's not far from what Stefano said, because sometimes also technical knowledge could produce this unbalance in the process. But I think that the most important attitude is to reflect not on the intentions in the production of knowledge, our production of knowledge and also the knowledge that is produced in the process, but in the use. So when you want to be effective in the process, you should think, okay, but how the things that we produce, a plan, a project, a participatory process is used, not in se, but in the use that is done in other practices, in other institutional, political, social practices. So shift from the intentions that often or always are very good to the uses of knowledge that we can do in academics, but the institution can do, the civil society can do, the citizens can do, how they use what we do.
How should we consider not only our intentions, but also their applications, as is suggested?
To continue from what Professor Pasqui said, good intentions are important. However, what counts at the end of the day is the product or the result. It is important while doing research to keep in mind the applicability of our findings. What I mean by that is the extent to which the outcome of this research can be applied in real situations and how helpful it can be for practitioners. Often, when translating research into real-life situations, we notice that implementing our ideas encounters much more complicated circumstances than we initially thought. Many researchers tend to play the role of the victim facing such challenges. What Stefano Salata highlighted is that planners can also play an important role in communicating their work to convince the relevant actors. Planners have the technical knowledge and expertise that decision makers often lack. Their role should not be merely to validate decisions made by stakeholders, which are usually guided by economic profit. Instead, their role is much more complex and involves contesting projects presented, aiming to enhance their quality.
Urbinary.
And now, a key question that we have posed to all the participants. How can we bridge the gap between academia and the broader community to translate academic insight into the real-world impact?
Thank you for this crucial question, I believe. My colleagues have already provided interesting answers to this question. As for my perspective, I would like to discuss the role of academia in general, particularly in today's turbulent world. The university is an urban and political actor. It is a space for civil dialogue among people with very different point of views. It is also a platform for manifesting and amplifying the voices of those who might otherwise go unheard. Thus, academia should actively address pressing issues facing humanity, spanning from economic and political concerns to climate change and beyond. The emergence of student movements globally underscores the significance of academic engagement in societal matters. As PhD candidates and students in general, we are fortunate to have relatively more freedom to express our ideas compared to structured researchers and professors. Unfortunately, recent events reveal threats to academic freedom, with professors facing repercussions for expressing their opinions, even in countries where liberties are supposed, supposed to be protected. Moreover, it is essential to consider how academics communicate their research. This is a topic that have been discussed often during our conference. While our specialization often leads to the use of technical language, simplifying our communication is vital when reaching out to the broader public. By making our ideas accessible, we can effectively convey messages and foster understanding among diverse audiences.
Thank you, Abdallah, for your insightful discussion on such an important topic. It was truly enlightening.
Thank you, Anita, and thank you for the team of Urbinary for having me again. It's always a pleasure.
Urbinary.
And for our listeners, stay tuned for our next episodes, where we will interview two participants from Track 4, Anna and Janneke. Urbinary is produced in collaboration with Poly Radio, the official radio channel at Politecnico di Milano.
Urbinary, the podcast cataloging the everyday and extraordinary in the city.